And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never sit out. We're your hosts, ND and CD. Today, we're talking about week 7. We're talking about previews. We got 8 games we're previewing. We got our best bets, and we got our dirty dogs. Look, if you don't know what this is, I suggest you stick around. If you're a college football fan, stick around. If you want to learn about college football, stick around. Me and CD got you guys. Okay, we're going to be talking about all kinds of areas in college football, all over. I mean, yeah, we're previewing 8 games. If you have a team in mind that you want us to talk about in the future, yeah, let us know. All right, in the comments. You can email us at thredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. You can DM us on Twitter at thredshirtsoft. You can find us in all sorts of places. Okay, and we'll be willing to talk about your team, but just because we don't talk about your team in the previews doesn't mean we're not talking about them in the counter, in 30 dogs, or in the recap. So make sure if you like this content, like the video, and consider subscribing. We just hit the 500 subscription mark just last week, which is a huge deal. Something that CD and I weren't sure was possible when we started this, and here we are, continuing to grow with your support. So we thank you so much. CD, what's going on, dude?
Nothing much. Super pumped to be here. Super pumped to talk. It is October. Holy cow. Week 7. I cannot believe that. We just finished watching Florida Atlantic and Liberty in a classic there in the CUSA. Maybe
Florida
a much tighter
International.
conference. Maybe a much tighter conference than we had thought coming in the season. Like Matthew said, stick around. I think we're going to be previewing, not previewing, but like touching on 24 different games. That's 48 different teams this week in this episode alone. And obviously, super pumped to get into it. Obviously, wow, what a weekend. We got big time games in the Big Ten. We got big time games in the SEC, the Pac 12. Excuse me. Wow. I'm so sorry, Pac 12. The Big 12, as well as the ACC, and obviously our G5 prop. Our G5. I just got Pac 12 After Dark on my mind right now.
Hey,
I miss it,
Pac-12's
man.
not dead. It's not dead. We haven't really even
That's
talked
true.
about conference realignment. Maybe that'll come in a video later, but it's not over yet. So I feel like it's not. When all is said and done, we'll make sure that everyone's aligned and everyone knows what's going on, why things happen, where teams are going. But I'm kind of just focused on this season right now. No reason to talk about next year when we got absolute barn burners. You know, I mean, last week we had Tennessee upset, top 10 against Arkansas. We had Vanderbilt upset, number 1 Alabama. We had Miami almost dropped to Cal. USC dropped to Minnesota. Michigan dropped to Washington. You know, I'm pretty sure Washington was favorites in that game, but you know, it's a top 10 team, allegedly. So yeah, I'm pumped for this week. Again, the agenda is previewing 8 games. Then we're gonna go to our best bets, which we have 12 of them this week. No, 13 of them this week. And then we got our dirty dogs, which are 10-point underdogs, and we think have a chance of winning outright. And by the way, we've done spectacular in those this season. I'm 5-7, by the way. That's how much you dropped an F-bomb there. That's pretty wild. So let's go. Let's get into it. Into the games right away. Utah traveling to Arizona State. Cam Rising playing. I have zero clue. I'm gonna assume no, because that's what I've learned when we're looking at Utah and injury reports. Kyle Whittingham, just it's like, yeah, there's a possibility. There's always a possibility. Loves keeping those cards close to his chest. If he was in the SEC, he would not be able to handle himself with those injury reports that he has to put out. But yeah, I mean, Utah, they're 6.5-point favorites here on the road. Utah or Arizona State's played some surprisingly good football this year. Sam Leavitt, I think, has been better than anticipated, at least from what I expected. Is Isaac Wilson that good? I'm not really inclined to believe so. I think he can win you football games, though, because the rest of this Utah team is pretty dang talented. So, what are your thoughts on this game, and what are your thoughts on the coaching matchup here?
Yeah, definitely super interesting. Obviously, a team in Arizona State who's kind of surprised some people early on. Obviously, big win over Mississippi State and Texas Tech in the out of conference, and followed that up a couple weeks later beating Kansas in the Big 12 to get their first Big 12 win of the year, or of their career, actually. Obviously, big for our guy there, Kenny Dillingham, going against the old head there in Whittington there, Kyle Whittington. Big news here for Arizona State, though. Maybe not so injury report, but suspension in terms of, what happened last game, at the end of last game, right? Keyshawn Elliott, Clayton Smith, they're both gone. Big members of that front seven. And if a guy like Cam Rising's not going to play, those are guys that are going to have to step up or would have to step up to stop the run, to stop Isaac Wilson, and maybe stifle that Utah offense, similar to Arizona's interstate rival Arizona did a couple weeks ago. And for that reason, I like Utah, right, -6.5 here, even if Isaac Wilson goes. I think they've got some playmakers on the outside. I think with those suspensions and the way Utah can move the football, even without Cam Rising, I think they still get it done, and that defense is still very good. And Sam Leavitt is no Fafita. There's no Ted McMillan here to bail them out. Yeah, I like Utah here on the road, kind of getting right, eventually kind of buying their time, waiting for hopefully Cam Rising to get healthy, and they can really make their run in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ride with you here. I like Utah -6.5. However, I do think Arizona State's their front seven has impressed me. They lost some key pieces there in the offseason and wasn't sure if they were going to have the bodies to match up with a team like Utah. But I don't know. I've been somewhat impressed. Not sure. I don't really love their secondary. I don't know if Isaac Wilson would be able to, take advantage of that. If Cam Rising does play, I think this is an easy, -6.5. I think Cam Rising is worth that many points. So I'm with you. I like Utah on the spot, -6.5. The question is what? Like Utah at home doesn't lose this game, right? But on the road, I feel like this is a spot where Utah can lose, right? And here's the thing: you have to win this game for Utah. If your hopes are to win the college football playoff or make it to the college football playoffs, win the Big 12, which this team is flat out good enough to do, and their schedule also allows for that to happen. And we've seen other teams in the Big 12 be very vulnerable here. I mean, you got Texas Tech is undefeated in the Big 12 right now. I like Utah to win the Big 12 and go to the college football playoffs, but you need Cam Rising. Is this a spot here that you could see Utah potentially dropping because of subpar quarterback play and Isaac Wilson and maybe Samuel getting a little bit loose there in the pocket?
Absolutely. And also Cam Scadaboo. I don't know how it's been this long until we brought him up. He is one of the better players in college football, without a doubt. What he can do, not only running the football, but catching the ball out of the backfield, creating plays, making it easy for a guy like Leavitt at home to get settled in. And we love Kenny Dillingham and what he does for his quarterbacks to put them in best opportunities against obviously teams with potentially more talent than they have. I mean, what Arizona did is they just made plays like when they needed to beat Utah, right, on the road. That was big time. It wasn't every play, it wasn't super efficient, it wasn't every drive, but certain times in the game when they needed a play, right, whether it was a turnover or whether it was a third down or a long touchdown response, whatever it was, they made the plays. And it worries me that I don't know if Arizona State can like do that, if I trust them to do that in this game. And also Utah is coming off of a bye, right? They did have a chance to self-scout. They did have a chance to get right, not only healthy, with hopefully Isaac Wilson getting a little bit more healthy, and same with Cam Rising, but also just kind of get fresh and let that bad taste of a loss kind of sit in their mouth all bye week, all week this preparation week, and then really get after it, once they do get, into the game. And it's a Friday night game too. So not only is it a short week turnaround for Arizona State, who had to play Kansas last week, but it's also, Utah was able to sit there and kind of relax and kind of get ready for it, even though they are traveling on the road.
And you look at if you're trying to look at an angle and you're trying to box score snipe this, and you're like, okay, Arizona State's really good against the run. You're like, oh my gosh, Utah. That's kind of how their offense has been effective. I'm sure they have 13 passing touchdowns, but they're averaging almost 5 yards a carry on the ground. And Micah Bernard's just been such a key weapon in that for Utah in their offense. But if you look at Arizona State, like some of these stats are a little bit inflated by some of the teams like Mississippi State. Can't run the ball. Okay, your run defense is going to look good against a team like Mississippi State. But I look at a game like Kansas, like Highshaw and Neal combined for 5 yards a carry. Taj Brooks ran for 117 yards, albeit it wasn't all that efficient, but it was there. I I think this team's gettable on the ground. I yeah, I just think it's Utah all the way here. I don't feel like I can justify. I could justify picking Arizona State, but for me, it's hard. For me, it's hard. So I think Utah
If
does need to control the ball and convert on third downs, which they haven't done all year, by the way. They need to do
mhm.
that. Control this game.
Yeah, and real quick to add that too, you need positive game script and drive script, like play script for Arizona State, like you said, run the ball, be ahead of the chains, have easy third downs, and then also not being able to force to play from behind. Because if you do that against that front of Utah and that defense, it can get really hard for Leave It though. I will give him a ton of credit though. Last week we saw him really light it up, and the offense as a whole lighted up in that second half after he threw a red zone interception, right? That would have taken the lead, or at least nonetheless kicked a field goal to tie the football game. But he comes back and responds 3 straight touchdown winning drives, including the game winner. Yeah, uh, got to give him a ton of credit. I will say I've been, like you said, pleasantly surprised with his development and his play so far with Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State.
Let's head over to Tuscaloosa. I mean, a rabid fan base, a fan base that is absolutely furious, a team that's furious with their loss to Vanderbilt last week. And both these teams, South Carolina and Alabama, are coming off kind of gut wrenching losses in a different way. Alabama being to a team that you were, 20 plus point favorite against, and South Carolina just getting kind of manhandled and their offense continuing to stink. And for an offensive line that I thought was going to improve over the season, I mean, South Carolina's given up 22 sacks in the year, which is last in college football. Granted, some teams have had buys, and I think there's some teams with a higher sack rate. But man, for a team that runs the ball quite frequently too, to have 22 sacks is quite a lot. It's quite a lot given up. So Alabama, I think this is a 21-point spread, which is what we're picking this game at. And obviously none of these spreads that we pick here are we bet on. Well, some of them we do, but so just to pick this game, obviously I'm taking Alabama to win. Okay, they're going to get right here, but I got to take them also to cover here too. I mean, South Carolina, I like them in their matchup against certain teams. Okay, I think Jalen Monroe is too good of an athlete, right? And I also think this Alabama defense, the front seven, I still think it's fine, and I still think I don't know. There were a lot of concerns coming out of that Vanderbilt game, but I also got to just credit the coaching staff. There's a couple games like that that happen to Alabama every so often, every few years, I would say. I look at 2021 Texas A&M, a team that went 7-5, where Zach Calzada threw for 300 yards. Okay, like they just got out coached that game, out schemed. You look at South Carolina and was it 2010? Steven Garcia. I mean, just got out schemed in that game. Like Bo
Auburn a
Wallace,
couple times.
Auburn a couple times. Yeah, even on the
Ole
fourth
Miss,
and
Hugh Freeze
31.
that in.
So yeah, Hugh Freeze out schemed Bama twice. I mean, it happens. Okay, I just don't see that happening with this South Carolina team. I think Bama gets right. I think they're pissed. I think they're going to send a message here, and they get them at home. I think it'd be a little bit different if you're playing in Williams-Brice, but it'll be interesting to see though how Jalen Monroe responds. He's been better about not taking sacks this season, but if he tries to do too much, the athleticism of the South Carolina defensive line could get the better of him and put Alabama behind the chains. And South Carolina, I don't have their explosive stat number in front of me, but I don't think they're super prone to the explosive play. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to be here to correct me on that, but Alabama's kind of relied on this explosive play and haven't been able to sustain drives. They get back in the chains and they can't generate explosive plays with Ryan Williams on the field. I could see a situation where South Carolina makes this a close game. I think Alabama could win this game like Ole Miss did, 27-3. Now I think Ole Miss's defense is a little bit better than Alabama's defense, but again, I think that Vanderbilt game was more of an outlier than the actual truth to this Alabama team.
Yeah, yes. And the Alabama, by the way, their offense was not really the problem. Yes, those 2 turnovers absolutely killed you. But also, you gave up 40 points to Vanderbilt. You talk about getting out schemed. Absolutely. Vanderbilt had a strategy. Vanderbilt had an identity that they stuck to and that they executed very, very well. I wonder if they were saving that for this game. Can Dowell Loggins do that? And can this South Carolina team, who we think has probably better wide receivers than Vanderbilt, can they take advantage of it? And it's going to be up, obviously, to the North Sellers and the South Carolina team. Both teams, by the way, much, much better playing with a lead, like significantly better, I think, offensively, at least. Alabama's secondary, yes, very, very concerning. But again, oh man, I don't know if I can take South Carolina to do that for 4 quarters and to put it on Sellers. I think Bam's defense, especially, is going to come out and just be furious. It's interesting. It's kind of a shame. 2 straight weeks now for South Carolina that we had kind of pictured of like, hey, with certain right things going on here, these might be trap games for Ole Miss and for Alabama, right? And 2 straight weeks now, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky the week prior and kind of woke up, and then Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, and we'll see if they kind of wake up. Kind of tough, morale and just dynamics of the schedule for South Carolina to see that happen to your opponent 2 straight weeks now. Yeah, I think Bama gets right. I think they run the ball well. I think they try to establish that because it's it's been a little bit concerning. I know the offense has not been the problem, right? You scored 41 against Bama, or against Georgia, excuse me. You scored 35 against Vanderbilt. But again, if you want to like not salt away leads, or you want to prevent yourself from turning the ball over in key spots, running the ball is a very important thing to be able to do that. 84 rush yards, and a lot of that was game script. I get that against Vanderbilt, but I just don't see it happening here for South Carolina. Bama gets right. I wonder how the atmosphere is going to be. Right, it's in Bryant-Denny. Obviously, 11 a.m. start. Obviously, very, very upset fan base. I mean, if you saw anything about Paul Feinbaum and Legend and everyone else going off about Alabama, it's justified for sure. And in a situation this program has not been in a while, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see not only the identity and the makeup of this Bama roster and the coaching staff, but also the fans as well.
I think in order for South Carolina to cover this game, and I'm not saying win because I think they got to do a lot more than just this to win the football game, but now mentioning explosive plays, I mean, South Carolina's had issues in the secondary tackling, okay? You got to bring down Brian Williams. You got to bring down Jeremy Bernard. You got to bring those guys to the ground.
And
right?
Milroe, too.
Yeah, and Milroe, right?
He gets the second and third lever.
Has had issues tackling. So clean it up, and I think you got a chance to, cover this game, bring yourself within 3 touchdowns, and then I think you need explosive plays. In the LSU game, you saw and I don't want to say that South Carolina shouldn't have won that game because they should have, because of that stupid penalty that was called, but the reality is, too, South Carolina had a couple of huge explosive run plays that kept them in that football game late. And they kind of relied on that as their offense, as well as, the turnovers. So if Bama turns the ball over and South Carolina finds ways to make explosive plays the way the Vanderbilt did, and South Carolina can absolutely, they can win this game. They could. I know it's a 21-point game. We're talking about they can't possibly win this game, but they can. I just believe that more times than not, Alabama wins and covers in this game, and I believe you feel the same way. The Red River Shootout. Texas, Oklahoma. Here we go. You got your first Red River Shootout in the SEC era of Texas and Oklahoma, and Texas is 14.5-point favorites. Now, has Texas played any particular team that's incredible? I'm willing to say no, because I don't think Michigan is really. ULM's 4-1. Holy jeez. I don't believe that Michigan's that good. Okay, I really don't. I know you took them on the road, and that still is a tough place to go to, and they looked awesome in that game. Still waiting for a slightly bigger sample size to see what they're really made of. Oklahoma, on the other hand, has struggled on the offensive side of the football in more ways than one, but defensively, I think they've put up a pretty good effort in a lot of these games. On the flip side, too, you can look at Oklahoma's schedule and be like, okay, it's not like they've played a ton of mega, absolutely superstar rosters either. But I'm still inclined to believe this defense for Oklahoma is pretty good. It's a veteran unit. They're really good across the front seven. Can these wide receivers for Texas take advantage of this? And I know that Texas has done a good job scoring in the red zone this season. I'm still kind of concerned. Like, what if they get down there, right? And they got these smaller receivers and they got a rushing attack that's been good, hasn't been great, and you stall out in the red zone and those touchdowns turn into field goals, I don't know. I think there's a chance that Oklahoma stays in this football game if they take care of the football and they find a way to stall Texas in the red zone. I think they can cover this 14.5. I'll take Texas to win, but I think Oklahoma covers this 14.5. That's too many points in a rivalry game where both teams are talented. Okay, just Oklahoma having some offensive issues.
I'll be with you there too, actually. Absolutely. Texas to win, but Oklahoma plus 14.5. I also think the backdoor cover here is certainly in play with potentially not the lack of talent at running back, right, for Texas, but we've seen some of the injuries pile up now, and that could be something to absolutely keep in mind for sure in terms of trying to salt this game away in that fourth quarter. Also, you got to think about too, Quinn Ewers, very, very good. And I think absolutely he gives you the best chance to win this football game other than over Arch Manning for sure. But he also might be a little bit rusty too. It's been, 3, 4, almost a month since he played. We saw him play in that Michigan game,
Yep.
and I absolutely looked very good. But again, you could see some of that. Oklahoma, you mentioned, very good defense, right? We love the way that they've been playing and attacking teams, Tennessee, Auburn, just like that. And I'll say this too, I don't know if I buy this whole like Texas elite defense thing. They played an awful, awful Michigan offense, right? Davis Warren was terrible. And they kind of just sold out for the run in that first half and just kind of made Michigan, who didn't have any weapons, try to move the football. And they did a little bit in that first half. They just couldn't execute. They couldn't score, right? We saw the interceptions, fumble, whatever. I do think Oklahoma, with Michael Hawkins, has that identity that we're just going to run the football. We get Javante Barnes back there. Hopefully, we're going to get some wide receivers healthy. I don't know exactly what's going to go on there, but that would be ideal, and maybe give you some kind of weapon with a deep threat or something that you can kind of take some pressure off of Hawkins and Barnes. But they're going to have that identity. They'll shorten the game, kind of muddy it up, and make Quinn Ewers in that offense score every time and score touchdowns. You talked about the red zone and stuff like that. That's going to be so important in this game if you're not only to win, but also to cover that 14.5 for those reasons. And it's also the Red River rivalry game. You like picking a blowout. Yes, it happened a couple years ago. I get that. Much different teams right now. It's very rare, right? In the last, half a decade, we've seen in this game here. Is it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's normally been that big noon kickoff, right? Because it's been the 11 a.m. Fox game. What we can remember,
I
right?
believe it's normally an 11 a.m. game.
It's 2:30 now.
Central time.
Central time, thank you. That big noon kickoff, big noon Eastern time kickoff. We'll see. It's going to be pretty hot there, right? 2:30, baking in the sun. I don't know if that favors a team like Texas with some speed and athleticism, or if that maybe favors the ground and pound physical style that Oklahoma's going to bring to this, which, by the way, is crazy to think about. Yeah.
Now, I mean, the Texas offensive line obviously is probably one of the better offensive lines in the country. Of course, before Oklahoma fans are like, powerhouse offense, what do you mean? We've played Tennessee. I mean, I was pretty sold on Tennessee earlier this season. I think I've had to reevaluate somewhat their offense and at least Nico Iamaleava at this point. I still think Oklahoma put up a really good defensive effort for the most part in that game. And it was their offense, and Jackson Darnold kind of let them down, and Hawkins kind of showed some life there at the end of the game. But, I mean, Tulane, I don't know. I like to think that they're pretty one-dimensional, at least when they're playing high-level competition. I feel like quarterback isn't – it's not perfect there. It's all right. It's not perfect. And then Auburn, I mean, winning on a picture. You've also had turnover luck, too. I mean, 8 fumble recoveries. There's the most fumble recoveries in the entire country up until this point. So the Oklahoma defense, I still think is good. Okay, they've gotten to the quarterback, 18 sacks, only allowed 2.6 yards per carry. only allowing 16 points per game. I've seen the friskiness. I've seen the experience. So I'm very interested to see how this game turns out. I think it can go a lot of different ways, but I'm inclined to believe that I still think the Oklahoma defense is good, despite what all the stuff I just said about, maybe not playing all the elitist of talent that I thought that maybe they played early in the season. But we'll see,
Can I
man.
ask you this? Can I
Yeah.
ask you this? So, in terms of Sarkisian on the offensive side versus Venables on the defensive side, and it's kind of hard to pick. It's apples and oranges, but who do you give the edge to here, right? And obviously, players matter, right, in the environment, obviously. But
Yeah, you got to give it to Sarkisian, right? I mean, I love what Brett Venables is doing on the defense side of the football, and you can tell that year over year there's been consistent improvement, right? And players are staying in their program, and they're getting high level recruits and talent, in both levels, right? In secondary and the defensive line, I think they've had some big time names, big time recruits come there the last couple of years. But yeah, I give it to Sarkisian. I don't know if I give Texas's weapons the edge, and I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know why. I feel like I still need to see more from these Texas weapons, and maybe this is just we talk about grading certain teams on different curves than we grade other teams, because Texas is one of the best teams in the entire country. I still feel like I need to see more from Texas's weapons, particularly their wide receivers, to really feel like that I know that this is a national championship caliber team, which, based on what we've seen on the field, I can understand the argument that one will believe that Texas is a national championship contender. They are a national championship contender. I shouldn't say that they're not, but are they that team? I think we're gonna learn a lot. I don't think necessarily we'll learn everything we need to learn about Texas moving forward after this game, but I think we'll learn a lot. Every little data point counts. So I'm excited. But with you, we'll take Texas to win, Oklahoma to cover 14, and the hook in the Cotton Bowl. Let's move on. Let's talk about Penn State traveling across the country, 3 time zones at least, to USC. Penn State's favored by 5.5 in this one. Penn State coming off I don't know. I mean, they won. I mean, they were fine. They didn't really feel like a super mega sweat there. USC coming off a just brutal loss to Minnesota on the road there. Hoping to turn it around here now that they're at home. Lincoln Riley, fan base is getting a little bit impatient with him over there. USC just not finding ways to put the ball in the end zone last week. And we've talked about Penn State's secondary, especially with, their safety or Winston, getting hurt. It is potentially vulnerable. If there was a spot maybe in this defense that was vulnerable, it could be their secondary. And USC's offensive line, I'm inclined to believe is pretty good, although John Joyner played pretty well against them.
The tackles do kind of concern me. I mean, John Joyner, and by the way, he is right, probably one of the better underrated defensive linemen, edge rushers in the Big Ten here, and he got after him. He really did, especially when USC was forced to throw the football, or like you knew they kind of were going to, and USC they just went away from the running game. Like, what was that about? If you stuck with that, you put your pedal there, the metal there, you were going to get a win in Minneapolis there, and you didn't. And whether that's Lincoln Riley, whether that's scheme or whatever, they thought certain matchups, maybe Minnesota did something different in the second half to kind of stifle that. But I didn't see it right in the stands there. I didn't quite see it, regardless. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I mean, finally the sack numbers are starting to pick it up for Penn State here early in the season. They were getting pressured, just not getting to the quarterback. Now it seems to be that way. Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis Sutton combining for 34 pressures already. It's week 7. Those are pretty good numbers. I just every time I watch Penn State, I'm just not impressed. All right,
No,
I know
that's
yeah. Is that crazy? Here's the thing: USC's run defense though it's been an issue this year. I mean, like Darius Taylor. I mean, I don't know if we're looking at this from a lens of like supreme recency bias, but also when USC played LSU did not realize that they had a guy by the name of Caden Durham who's really good at running back. Okay. Um, and also I would say that USC benefited from getting some turnover on downs in some key situations against LSU. So when I look back on that game, I think I'm looking at it through a different lens now, where maybe LSU could have and should have won that game, you know. But at the same time, I look at this Penn State team and I'm like, they're running the ball really effectively, and that is just the Andy Kotelnicki effect, right? He's just been awesome, and the defense has been also lights out as well. 5.5 though, I do think that USC's weapons are really, really good. And I think traveling across the country is no joke. I like this to be a low scoring game. I do. And I'm not sure everyone's going to agree with that, because everyone's going to be like, oh, Penn State's going to run all over USC. And they're going to be like, oh, USC's going to throw the ball over Penn State. I don't know that this is going to be a high scoring game. I don't know. The total's at 50.5, and I kind of like the under. Not to preview the best bets of the week, but I think I like the points with USC here, the 5.5. If
Yeah,
I
that's
do,
not crazy. I like USC here. I'll take plus 5.5. I'll take USC to win as well.
me too.
It, like you said it best. Penn State just has not been impressive. I don't think all year in terms of
For
like
some
how
reason,
they
like
played, and
metrically,
maybe
they look awesome.
I mean they're
They
getting
are,
wins, right? 5-0 is better than 3-2 for USC right now, absolutely. And they haven't had the dud, and when they did, maybe against Bowling Green, right? Illinois for a little bit, like they came back and they had a nice finish to that football game. I just think this USC team is pretty good. I think they're battle tested. I think they just kind of flat out got beat by a bad matchup right on the road and by a physical football team. And
also they abandoned the run.
yeah, and they abandoned the run. Yeah, which I don't think they'll do again. The only good news for Penn State here is that Nick Singleton sounds like he will be back for this game, which is massive. He missed last week. Him and Kay Allen splitting time there is a huge step up, is a huge thing, especially like you said, against this USC front. Hopefully Eric Gentry is back for USC. They really missed him against Minnesota. He said it's a possibility he might be back. If not, he might kind of have to be gone for a while now. We'll see here about that. I just think USC gets it done at home. I think that the travel, we've seen these teams struggle traveling across the country. I think USC is fired up. I don't think Penn State's built to play from behind, and USC is. So I feel good either way with the game script. Yeah, give me USC here.
Yeah, and I don't feel good about it at all. I don't feel good about it, because what happens too? Like if Penn State gets up, okay, and they can just pin their ears back on defense, it could get weird. Now, here's the thing too: if Penn State gets up, Andy Kotelnicki, known for being pretty fast paced guy, like got to know when to slow it down. I got a lot of questions, man, about USC and Penn State for that matter, and I don't know that these teams are the right matchup for each other to really know like how I feel about these teams moving forward, because USC, we know how strong their passing game is, and Penn State's secondary, I feel like, and I could be totally proven wrong this week, I feel like it's been gettable, and USC's run defense has, kind of been lacking. So they both kind of play into each other's weaknesses. So I don't know that we're going to learn. This is a game we should learn more about these teams, but I feel like I'm going to come out of it and be like, well, I mean, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that Penn State was going to run the ball well. I knew that USC was going to throw the ball well. It's like, but we'll see. I mean, it's always tough. Again, you talk about it all the time. Like, what is this traveling attrition going to look like for teams? Traveling to and fro California. I mean, I'm looking for USC to get right, man. I think that Minnesota game was more of an outlier. I think there were a lot of games that were outliers last week. All right, that's not the lone game, but and we both had USC on our best bets last week. I thought they were going to roll Minnesota. I thought they're going to walk in there to Huntington Bank, give them the business, throw the ball all over the yard against a secondary that I thought was overrated. Justin Wally was banged up, and I mean he ended up playing phenomenal. But yeah, I'm gonna take USC. I don't feel good about it, but we're gonna do it, and we've done pretty well this year. So I'm just gonna trust my gut. Ohio State travels to Oregon for the first time in, I don't know, like close to 50 years, maybe more than 50 years. This is a ball game, all right? When you got a Big Ten where there are no longer divisions, that determine whether or not you appear in the Big Ten championship, games like this matter a lot. Now, here's the thing. Oregon's hosting. Ohio State is still laying 3 points here on the road against an Oregon team that, I believe is pretty good. But we'll pick this game at 3.5. There's 3s, 3.5s on the board. I don't like pushes on this show. I really don't. So we'll pick this thing at 3.5. And I'm inclined to believe that Ohio State's the best team in the country. And I know you're like, okay, well, why are you saying that about Ohio State? And you're not saying that about Texas, because it feels like neither of them have played, really, really good teams. Ohio State's better on defense. All right, and they've shown that they're better on defense, and they have much more talent. And also, Ohio State has hardly opened up the playbook at all. I mean, they haven't even used Will Howard in the ground game. Like, what happens when you get that guy moving downhill? I mean, you got 2 running backs that are absolutely fantastic who, are both projected to have, I think their lines are like at 55 and 63.5 yards against, an Oregon front 7 that kind of got massacred against Gianti way back when, what was it, week 2 or 3? Yeah, I like Ohio State in the spot. I know Oregon's a good football team, but Dylan Gabriel, I mean, Oregon's offensive line, I feel like, has underwhelmed me just a little bit. I feel like Jordan James at running back has underwhelmed me a little bit. I think Ohio State might put a beat down on Oregon. And I'm not going to take these as my best bets, like someone else in the show. But I'm willing to pick Ohio State, and I'll lay 3.5 for the sake of our picking the games on this show.
I'm with you here. I will say this though about Oregon, they have gradually gotten better and better, I think, every week. And I guess we didn't really talk about it too much with them or really factor in. They brought in a lot of new pieces there that they're slowly working in. And the beauty of their schedule is they had a chance to build up to this game. Same thing with Ohio State, right? But they returned a ton of pieces, well, excluding their quarterback position. But they had a chance, Oregon did, to build up to this game, to save a lot of this game. And also, they're coming off, I think they played last Friday. So they have not only the extra day rest, but they don't have to travel across the country. Here's the thing, though. In a game like as big as this, and a team as deep and talented as Ohio State, and it sounds to be like they're on a mission this year, I don't quite factor in the travel schedule for them as much as I would for maybe like Penn State going all the way to LA, right? Or we saw USC going to Michigan and Minneapolis a couple times now. I just think the depth and talent of coaching, experience, veteran, all that other stuff that you love to have on the road, especially a long road trip, Ohio State has that and then some. You mentioned it, man. Their offense, it's been awesome. It's been the Jeremiah Smith. It's been Emeka Buka last week, having great times, putting up monster numbers. But yeah, I think there's still gas left in the tank for Chip Kelly there, not only with Will Howard, but how creative they can be with Judkins, with Henderson, and Howard back there, as well as just the freak amount of talent they have defensively. I think they can really kind of grind out Oregon. I wonder how Dylan Gabriel holds up against a big athletic front like Ohio State. He's not the biggest dude, right? And you're going to see batted balls. You can see a lot of pressure, especially up the middle, that could give him some problems that we haven't quite seen other teams maybe force upon him. Very efficient, very veteran. Things you love in Dylan Gabriel, absolutely. But there are some limitations. There's a reason why he's still in college and not quite in the NFL yet. We'll see if Ohio State and Jim Knowles can take advantage of them. I think they do. I don't know if I say blowout, but I do think, right, I do think at least a touchdown, right? I think this line's a little bit low, and I know it's scary taking a team on the road going this far in a big time moment like this. And Eugene, Oregon is going to be bonkers, bonkers. You got 2 versus 3 here. Obviously, you mentioned the impact this has in the Big 12, the Big Ten, especially with the schedules that these two teams play. Ohio State still has to play Michigan, still has to play Indiana. I can't believe I just said that. Still has to play Penn State, right? And Oregon has their own battles as well ahead with Illinois and Michigan and Washington potentially to end the season. So yeah, it's a lot can go wrong here for both teams. A win is massive, not only in securing a potential playoff spot, but also a spot in the Big Ten championship. And like we saw Oregon a couple years ago. I know it was a different roster for both of these teams, even different coaching staff. I think Dan Lanning wasn't quite there yet for Oregon, but they came into Columbus, the Horseshoe, a couple years ago, right? And they stomped Ohio State there. And I think, right, I think some of that staff, I think some of those players, they for sure remember that. I think they'll take it a little bit personally, and they'll go on the road and get a win here at Oregon. This is a game we've been circling, it sounds like, for months now, man. For months, it's finally here. I cannot wait. So happy. 6:30 NBC prime time. What a treat for NBC to get that in the Big Ten. I mean, yeah, like I got that right there on the head. If you're watching on YouTube, it. This is why, like, I was against conference expansion, right? I'll say that, but this is an awesome benefit, right? A regular season game like this, right? We'll see with Texas and Georgia in a couple weeks, right? Like, this is why we love college football. I hope this game means so much to these players as fans, because I think it does, and the sanctity of the regular season of college football. Sorry for my little tangent there, but yeah, I cannot wait as a fan, right? Just sit back, sit down on the couch, tune everything else out. Nothing else matters, but Ohio State going on to take Oregon.
Yeah, I agree with everything there. I do want to add 2 points, though. So you mentioned Dylan Gabriel, if he gets interior pressure, how it can affect him. I agree with you on that. However, last year, remember we said the same thing about Texas, right? And,
Yeah.
T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. And we were like, oh, they're going to have interior pressure. Dylan Gabriel is going to struggle. And, well, he played his best game of the entire season. Because but they schemed around. They got him outside of the pocket. But here's the thing. Texas did not have the edge rushers that Ohio State does. Jack Sawyer, 18 pressures already. JT Tuimoloau. I mean, he's also nuts on his own. So I don't know if you're going to be able to roll him out of the pocket, right, with those athletic edge rushers the way that you were able to do against Texas. And then also, Oregon has struggled in the red zone this year on offense. And in a game where the spread is 3 points, I get that you're at home. But Ohio State's red zone defense and defense in general is nuclear. Now, I hope that we don't come back. Oregon drops 40 points, and we're like, all right, what a terrible take by us. I think this Ohio State defense was good, but it's good. All right, just believe us when we tell you that it's really good. They're going to shut down Oregon in the red zone. Dylan Gabriel's going to have problems. I don't know. These wide receivers might get some separation, but I don't believe that they're going to run the ball that well. I think it's going to be one of those games where you realize the limitations of Dylan Gabriel. So yeah, I'm with you. Let's lay Ohio State 3.5.
Can I ask you this real quick? We talked about how Ohio State has been holding things. Do you think it's similar that Oregon has? I mean, I look at a guy like Evan Stewart, and we talked a lot all season, like not only about him, but this whole wide receiver group in general, right? Is it just a byproduct of maybe the offense kind of getting a slow start with him, or you've got an elite running back like Jordan James, you can just turn around, hand the ball to him, and win a lot of football games? Are we going to see a guy like Evan Stewart, right? Maybe Jurion Dickey, maybe some guys break out like that to be able to because Ted Johnson can't do it all, right? You have to believe that Ohio State, Denzel Burke, right? Caleb Downs, like they got elite secondary guys back there to be able to take him away. They're going to need other guys to step up. It has to be Stewart, right? Is that it's got to be Stewart?
Yeah, I mean, because Gary Bryant's injured. He's not going to be there, right? That's a guy that you thought might be explosive coming over from USC a couple years back, but yeah, Tez Johnson has double the amount of targets anyone else in this team has. Okay, so you know that they're circling him. You're right; he can't do it by himself, I know it's really easy for Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel loves his slot receivers. Yeah, that's another aspect too. Like, I don't know that they're holding Evan Stewart back. I mean, Tez Johnson, on his 52 targets, he's caught the ball 42 times. That's a pretty good ratio right there. But his average depth of target's only 5 yards. So the issue is, like, if you're getting Tez Johnson the ball right there, like, he's really effective with the ball in his hands, but Ohio State defenders are just so much of a better athlete. Like, you have to stretch the field.
Those linebackers, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you have to stretch the field. You're right, with Evan Stewart, right, with Trayshawn Holden. I don't know about Jurian Dickey. I mean, he's had 1 target all year. I think Terrence Ferguson's going to be a weapon in this game that they have to utilize. Like, Tez Johnson, yeah, he's not going to win this football game. I mean, he could have 8, 9 targets in this game, but it's just he can't do it alone. All right, I know he's really good, but they need more. They need more. Let's move on then. Let's go to the SEC. Back to the well here. I mean, you've had some crazy SEC games these last couple weeks, in particular last week, and you got another great one here. Ole Miss traveling to LSU. LSU 3.5-point dogs here to an LSU team, or to an Ole Miss team that dropped one to Kentucky 2 weeks ago. LSU kind of been, slowly on the rise. They had a scare against South Carolina. They lost to USC. But it looks like they've looked better the last couple of weeks, and I believe Caden Durham is looking all right to play this weekend. If that's the case, then I feel a lot better about this offense, because he is such an explosive weapon coming out of the backfield there. I'm not sure what I'm feeling right now, because also Jackson Dart, 2 straight weeks, now granted against 2 very good defenses, didn't really look like Jackson Dart. But I'm willing to believe that South Carolina and Kentucky, like we said in our preseason previews, that those 2 defenses could be top half, if not top quarter defenses in the SEC. And I'm just going to believe that that's the case. Okay, LSU, have they played a little bit better on defense this year than they did maybe last year? Oh, yeah, sure. Is that all credit to Blake Baker? I think a lot of it is. I don't know that they necessarily made a ton of personnel changes, or at least the ones that they wanted to, in terms of player personnel. That I think they've looked all right on the defensive side of the football. Not great, not elite, but fine. Ole Miss has kind of struggled to run the ball the last couple of games as well. I think that's a factor that you have to consider. Do they need to run the ball against LSU to win? I don't necessarily think that they do. I'll lay it with Ole Miss 3.5. Don't feel great about it, because it's another one of those road short dogs in conference where you got, LSU's undefeated in the SEC. Everything that they want to accomplish is in front of them. Ole Miss is playing a little bit from behind because they did lose to Kentucky. But I think Garrett Nussmeier is really good, but I also think that South Carolina's defensive line got to Garrett Nussmeier. They did. And I think Ole Miss's defensive line is really good. It's looked really good. Walter Nolan has been a monster on this team. I think they're going to find some ways to get to Garrett Nussmeier. I think they're going to generate some explosive plays in the passing game. And I think Ole Miss finds a way to win this football game, even though I think LSU is trending in the right direction. So I feel like there could be some people out there that like LSU in this spot because of the way that they've been playing football, and the way that Ole Miss has been playing football kind of looks like they're trending in opposite directions. I'm just more of the perspective that I think Kentucky and South Carolina are really good defenses, and that's why maybe Jackson Dart didn't look as good.
Yeah, I like the way LSU's been playing right now. I do think the matchup here is not quite what we love to see here for LSU. I think a lot of people saw them lose against USC, saw them struggle against Nicholls State, right? Saw them struggle at South Carolina. Probably should have lost that football game with one bad football call, one bad penalty on the pick 6. But I think they've been getting a lot better since then. They had a bye week to kind of get right, hopefully get a little bit healthy, like you said, with Durham. with that being said, yeah, I'm with you. I like Ole Miss here. I just think that Kentucky game, such a one-off. I was very impressed with how they played, not only offensively, especially in that first half, but defensively, right? Shutting down South Carolina, not letting them get anything, right? Going, putting points on the board here. It's going to be awesome. I think this is a game super exciting. Two really, really talented quarterbacks, talented receivers, coaching staffs that we love are in polarizing the SEC. Obviously, both teams very alive and well in the SEC. LSU, by the way, is still 1-0 in conference, right? They are still undefeated in the SEC, and a lot of their goals ahead of them. And it starts this week with Mississippi. With Ole Miss, if they're able to get a win here, would be massive. Same being said for Ole Miss, almost a little bit more. They are kind of, this is it, right? They got a tough schedule ahead of them, and they do not want to be chasing wins with Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia still on that schedule. This is big for them to get to their bye week, get a win here, and get a bye week. Yeah, give me Ole Miss minus 3.5. But wow, it's going to be such a good game. Can I ask you a question here? Coaching staff edge here. Ole Miss and Pete Golding, well, Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding, right? Brian Kelly and Blake Baker there. What do we got?
Man, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure if I can say that right now. Lane Kiffin gets up for these games, though.
Yeah.
You know, there's some games where he is outclassed in like terms of talent, and the way that he plays is to win football games. And sometimes that's why, you had Ole Miss in the past under Lane Kiffin. There were some games where they got outclassed, and it compounded because they took those Hail Mary shots. They ran those crazy plays. They took chances on defense. But this is a different Ole Miss team. This is a much more talented Ole Miss team. I think when I'm looking at two teams with equal talent, I don't love Pete Golding. And I don't love Blake Baker yet. I think I'm going to take Lane Kiffin in the coaching matchup. I don't know. Is that crazy? Just because of, I think, when you have equal talent, which Lane Kiffin normally doesn't have, I think Lane Kiffin can do a lot more with it than Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I think barely. And this game obviously will determine that. I did see some Alabama fans calling back for Pete Golding, so
Oh yeah, which is wild,
that.
by the way. Which is a wild state that we're in.
That's how desperate they are right now.
That's how desperate they are. But man, yeah, Kane Womack, Maurice Linguist. What are we doing? I mean, what are we doing? But this isn't about Alabama. All right, this is about Ole Miss and LSU. But yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, 10% sack rate, 24 sacks on the season, first in the country. They have, let's see, what is this? 5 players with over 15 pressures, and a 6th one with 14. That's nuts. They're getting after quarterbacks. Granted, maybe the offensive lines that they played against, aka South Carolina, Kentucky, maybe not great, and then some of those other lesser teams that they played. I still think the point stands, though, that they want to get after the quarterback. In LSU, they've only allowed 2 sacks, and I believe both of those were in the South Carolina game. But I'm willing to argue that Ole Miss's defensive line is up there with South Carolina in terms of from a pass rushing standpoint. So I think there's a chance that they put Garrett Nussmeier in some binds, which sounds crazy because I know how good LSU's offensive line is and how talented LSU's receivers are and their ability to separate. But I think there's a chance that Ole Miss gets after Garrett Nussmeier. So, but we'll see. I'm pumped for that game, dude. I'm absolutely pumped. Only 3.5 point spread. Huge SEC implications, college football playoff implications. I'm loving it. Let's go over to the Big 12 because we haven't talked enough Big 12 today. We talked about Utah, Arizona State. Let's get over to Iowa State, West Virginia. Iowa State. They're ranked pretty high, aren't they? I think people are pretty high, especially after that game against Baylor. They had a win against Iowa where they came back and won in pretty awesome fashion, hit a big field goal in that game. Iowa State fans are going to hate me, but I'm still not sold on Iowa State. I just need to see more, dude. I just need to see more. I like Rocco Beck. All right, and I like the pieces that they have on defense. They've looked really good from a defensive standpoint. Metrically, they've looked awesome. They've forced turnovers. They've prevented scores. They've looked okay in the red zone. Their secondary has been awesome. But I look at some of these teams that they've played and their offenses. Are you blown away by a lot of these offenses that Iowa State's played against this year?
No, that was Houston. I think that was before Zion Chris too. So
Yep.
they look like a different football team with him in there in the Big 12. No, really haven't. And Baylor with the back quarterback who, potentially playing better than what Daquan Finn was. But yeah, it's still remains to be seen. And are they really that? And we're kind of getting to that stage where we're going to start getting more and more data points. We're going to be able to have our opinions validated or obviously neglected here or reversed. In this case, I think it'll be reversed. I like Iowa State in this spot. Listen, even on the road here, -3, right? That's what we're picking at. I like that. I think Iowa State offensively is going to be able to get after West Virginia in a similar way we saw Eli Holstein get after them, especially in that second half against Pittsburgh. Now, yes, West Virginia should probably be 4-1 right now. They blew that game.
Yeah.
Blew that game. And a lot more people will be talking about that. But here's the thing. They're still 2-0 in conference. This is an undefeated Big 12 conference game. With the way Utah and the way, obviously, Oklahoma State, you got teams like Arizona and Kansas State kind of struggling too. This game matters a ton to both of these teams. The winner puts themselves in a big-time spot moving forward as we get through this Big 12, which we knew was going to be crazy. But holy cow, I didn't think we'd think it would be this crazy. I don't know. I like Iowa State here. Don't feel great about it. I'm not going to be betting on it at all at our counter. West Virginia, with the way they run the football, the way Garrett Green's been playing recently, you know what? I like their identity. I like teams who have an identity and stick to it, right? But that only gets you so far. I think Iowa State is explosive enough to take advantage and to put West Virginia in bad spots. Negative game script that favors Iowa State. Get ahead early on the road. That's big. Yeah.
I think there's a chance that West Virginia can gash them in the run game. I'll take West Virginia at home. I'll take the points, +3. I'll take West Virginia to win straight up here. I just don't think Iowa State's been tested this year. All right, they played against Iowa. It was a tough game. I believe it was on the road too. Did they win in Iowa? Yeah, they did. And credit to them. I don't know what really happened for Iowa there in the second half. Just Caleb Johnson ran for 187 yards. 187 yards. And then for some reason they just stalled out in the second half and allowed Iowa State to win that football game. And I know West Virginia's defense isn't great. Okay, I know it's not. Iowa State's offense. And tell me I'm wrong. Aside from the Baylor game, well, I guess the Arkansas State game, but who hasn't looked good against Arkansas State? Just when it's mattered against, Houston, did they look all that great? No. North Dakota, did they look all that great? No. I'm leaning West Virginia. And it's stupid because I liked West Virginia preseason. Okay. And I liked Iowa State, but I didn't love Iowa State preseason. Maybe I'm just trying to make sure that my preseason predictions, I'm still holding on to those. But I don't love the way that West Virginia has played in some of these games, particularly. The Penn State game, it was pretty awful. Pitt, what were we doing in that game? That was just ridiculous. But they're not a very penalized team. Neither is Iowa State. But on the road, that is a tough environment to play in. It is a tough environment to play in. Both these teams are playing for a lot. I just kind of like the Mountaineers in this spot. They're going to give me 3, but I also think that they can win. So I'll take them to win. But yeah, it'll It'll be interesting. If Iowa State shuts down West Virginia's run game, I'm inclined to believe that Iowa State probably will be my favorite up there with, like, in my opinion, Iowa State can change really fast after this game. If they come out here and Rocco Betts slings the football and he looks awesome and they shut down West Virginia's run game, I'm going to be like, all right, this Iowa State team has college football playoffs written all over it. Just need to see what they do, in those future games with that schedule. Because in my eyes right now, I'm looking at Utah and Kansas State. I feel like are teams that are legitimately talented enough to win the Big 12 and win the college or go into the college football playoffs. But you got teams like Texas Tech, that are fighting right now out there, which I don't feel great about moving forward. And then Iowa State right here is just a big, big fat question mark for me. And I know they're not a question mark for a lot of people, but I just feel like I still need to see more. So prove me wrong, Cyclones. But I'll lay it with West Virginia. Sorry, I'll take the points.
Yeah, real quick here on that game. If you're Iowa State, right, times we've seen them lose is when they just abandon the run game or they never even try to get it done. I will credit them this year. They have done that. They have committed to running the football, even against Iowa, who is very, very hard to run against. Jalen Jackson has been awesome. 5'7", 180. Eastern Michigan transfer before that, Lamar. We love that kind of kid. Carson Hansen looks good, the young kid out of Minnesota. I don't know what happened with Abu Sam. I was trying to find some kind of injury update, against Baylor and why he didn't get a ton of run because he's been running the football well as well. But you've got three guys you feel good about. Continue to give them the rock because Noel and Higgins get a ton of credit, and they should. A lot of hype around those two in the Big 12. But for Iowa State on the road here, you cannot abandon the run. You have to establish that early. Get Garrett Green and that Jaheim White. All those guys are on West Virginia, forcing them to, throw the football, put the ball in harm's way, and then you can really be opportunistic with your defense.
We're staying in the Big 12. Kansas State, Colorado. You go into Boulder. Kansas State. Playing from behind here in the Big 12 because they had a loss to BYU early in the season. Colorado. Are they undefeated in the Big 12? I believe
yes, they are. They're 2-0.
Are. They haven't been playing terrible football. Which maybe I think a lot of experts, including myself, thought that they might be playing at this point in the season, but Colorado has found ways to win football games. Could you say that they probably shouldn't have won the Baylor game? Absolutely. But did they look really good against UCF? Yes, they did. And while they still refuse to run the ball, they against the last two games, I feel like they've tried to run the ball a little bit more than maybe they did the first several. And I know I said this about UCF, but is Colorado going to be able to stop the run here? And look, KJ Jefferson, he's like, an athletic quarterback, right? He's not an athletic quarterback like Avery Johnson is. And the playmaking ability that you see from him is pretty unique. I know he had a bad game against BYU, but also some weird turnovers and special teams touchdowns kind of let that game slip a little bit. I still like Avery Johnson. Don't love Avery Johnson. Love me some DJ Giddens. I don't know. And if you're looking at this coaching matchup here, like Chris Kleiman is just such a better coach in game than Deion Sanders is that I'm willing to give you just a couple points there just from that. And I don't know, like it's just the altitude. I don't know I don't know why this game is as low as it is. I'm too scared to put in my best bets because I do think Colorado can stay in the games because Scherer is actually playing unbelievable football this year. He is actually playing unbelievable football. I know people don't love his attitude, whatever. When I'm in terms of evaluating these games and these players and these teams, I look at him and he's an absolute superstar. He is so good. And obviously Travis Hunter in his own right is just an absolute monster. And it's like the second odds-on favorite to win the Heisman because of what he does on both sides of the football. But man, Kansas State's been leaky in the past game at times this season, but I'm gonna lay it with Kansas State. Give me Kansas State minus 4.5 here.
Yeah, I really want to take Colorado just because I think that atmosphere is going to be big time. I do think they match up well, maybe pushing the ball down the field against Kansas State. And also the way they look against UCF, I can't get that out of my head. However, I do think my opinion on UCF has changed, pretty not significantly, but a good amount, right, in these last couple weeks here.
Well, especially with our opinion changing on TCU.
Yeah, that's more so of it, right? So I'll go Kansas State -4.5. Don't feel great about it, right? Like you said, super cautious about why this game is so low, and it kind of makes me think that Colorado has a chance to win this football game, which they absolutely do, right? Absolutely do. Here's the thing: you saw a lot of encouraging signs out of Manhattan last week or a couple weeks ago, right, against Oklahoma State. We saw them go and kind of just dominate, right? Dominate Oklahoma State. They got their bye week, got right, hopefully figured things out offensively. However, that defense, we talked about Colorado's defense last year being just terrible. Oklahoma State defense is in that same category in terms of just awful, 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 awful. So yes, of course, Kansas State looked good against them. So I think they're going to win. I think they'll go into Boulder and get a win. However, if you get down, you start trailing, you have a chance to come back because Colorado just refuses to run the football and to bleed out clock. It's going to be really hard. But if you're making Avery Johnson and DJ getting to get away from the running game and having Colorado's front seven, who's, by the way, their pass rush, I've been pretty impressed with it so far, can do some good things for you. And that's where you lead to some negative turnovers. You saw some of that happen there with BYU and Kansas State, where you just struggle to come back from a deficit and it kind of piles up on you. Yeah, I'll go Kansas State -4.5. But I do think the way that they would have to win this football game, the style of play this game has to be played is much more narrow than I would have thought coming into the season. And that's a credit to Colorado for sure.
Yeah, it really is. Their superstars are playing like superstars. And the defensive line has made plays, man.
Yep.
They've made plays, which, we talked about when we were in the offseason. We had our series, talking about, impact transfer portal players. And we talked about a couple of these guys on Colorado, just and what kind of impact that they can bring this defensive line. Just didn't have the juice last year. And, yeah, they've really made an impact on this team. Just in terms of like creating those negative plays that allows some of the athletes in your secondary to play down the football. They've been pretty opportunistic on the defense side of the football. They're top 10 in the country in fumbles recovered. They've also in fourth down situations, in the red zone, they've held up really well. But Kansas State has done a good job scoring in the red zone. I'm with you, dude. Kansas State -4.5 just feels like the right side, but it also feels too obvious. So I'm staying away from it on my best bets. But boy, was it very, very tempting. Let's get over to personally my favorite segment of the day. We're going to the Dirty Dogs. Okay, what does that mean? Okay. Our dirty dogs are just the stinkiest, smelliest dogs that you can possibly think of. We, meaning CD and I, each pick an underdog of the week, and those underdogs have to be 10 points, a 10-point underdog or more in terms of their point spread. So we're talking about anywhere from like plus 285 to like plus 2,000. Okay, we're talking about just smelly stuff. And look, on the year we're 5-19. Okay, if you were to bet these, which we don't bet these, I mean, some of them I do, but most of these I don't. Plus 1.65 units on the year. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty good stuff from us. So, here's the thing though. After all them dogs last week, including I think we caught our biggest underdog of the year at plus 600 last week. I don't feel good about this week. And a lot of these dogs, and the second I say that, obviously, that's when shit happens. Okay. And the way we do this, we draft this. So we drafted this pre-show. So CD and I both know what we're taking, but I'll go with what my first pick was, and I guess I'll give my reasoning. Florida plus 500. They're playing better football. Tennessee not playing better football. Now here's Florida's secondary. Are they going to be that healthy this week? I don't know. Okay. I'm looking at their injury report and thinking hopefully some of these guys are back. Is Moore going to be back? I don't know. Turner, I don't think is going to be in, but if they can get healthy in that secondary, and I know it's talented, dude, and I keep saying that, and they just keep getting torched in that secondary, but I think they can do it, man. Plus 500 feels like a lot. It's like 15.5 point spread there against Tennessee. I think Graham Mertz is fine. Honestly, we're not working with a lot here in terms of these dirty dogs. I felt way better about last week's and the week before's. But Florida plus 500 against a team that I think now Tennessee does need to get right week for sure. And they can do that against Florida. Florida's a team that you can do that against, but Florida also kind of kicked Tennessee's teeth in last year, you know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I guess my first pick reluctantly is Florida plus 500 because I don't love a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, that would have been my first pick there. I like that. Again, it's slim pickings, right? It's supposed to be like that, and that's what makes it so much fun. That was like makes it that much more fun when it does pay off. I'll move over to technically the ACC, but more so out of conference independent game. How about Stanford at Notre Dame? Give me plus 1,400. Give me the trees, man. Here's the thing. And yes, I understand that they're battling injuries significantly at the quarterback position. This is a value play. I do think Ashton Daniels might have a chance to play in that game. It sounds like he was pretty close to playing last week against Virginia Tech. And here's what I'll say too about that game. Yes, they lost by minus 20, by 24. Yes, we added a late bet for Virginia Tech. As soon as we heard that news, we were all over Vatek, and it worked out great for us.
Virginia Tech,
that lost
sorry,
by
not
24
Vatek.
points.
There's no such thing as Vatek.
I'm so sorry. We were all over Virginia Tech. For a team that lost by 24 points, they did not get significantly outplayed. They had 7 more minutes of time possession. In their first 3 drives, they had 30 plays and 0 points. You want to talk about Troy Taylor being in his bag? I think he does. Notre Dame offensively, they are susceptible to lose in every single game that they're playing this year, right? This just feels like a Stanford spot here, man. Plus 14, I couldn't resist.
Wow, that would be the smelliest dog to date in both years, this year and last year, as long as we've been doing the Dirty Dog segment. So that
Can I say this too, though? Like, if Ashton Daniels gets ruled healthy, Pete Thamel sends it to go, right? This line significantly moves, right? Not like
maybe
anything close, but it's still that 10-point lead, that 10-point right game, well over that. But in terms of like the money line, the money line moves.
You're at a key number though right now. I don't know about money line, yeah, sure will move, but you're at a key number right here, 23.5, 24, both those key numbers. Yeah, I could definitely see it crossing those key numbers. So if you do want to bet Stanford, and you're getting that inside information, not inside information. If you were a person out there that believes that Ashton Daniels is going to be healthy and going to play, I do think that Penn State plus 23.5, plus 24 is a good play. And in your case, plus 14 hunch. So, all right, I'll move over to another academic. Give me Vanderbilt plus 440 against Kentucky. Don't love it, actually. I actually like Kentucky a lot in this spot. I just looked across the board, and I just see a lot of things that I didn't like. I didn't have the nuts to take Oklahoma plus 500. Okay. I don't have the nuts to take to fade Western Kentucky, okay, against UTEP. Don't have the nuts to take Scotty Walton in that spot. Don't have the nuts to take Tony Sanchez against Jacksonville State. Don't have the nuts to take Utah State versus UNLV, given how well UNLV has been playing recently. There's just not a lot of other South Carolina you could convince me, okay, but this was just the one that I liked the most of the ones that were left. So I'll take Vanderbilt plus 440. They could get creative, okay? And Kentucky's offense is, not great. And if they don't put up points and Vanderbilt finds himself scheming people open and Diego Pavia's continues to just deal, okay, and Jerry Kill continues to be the best analyst hire of all time, right? Then yeah, I could see Vanderbilt winning this game potentially straight up. I mean, damn it, they beat Bama last week, all right, and they also beat Virginia Tech, okay, but they've also lost to Georgia State. Okay, that defense is vulnerable, and Kentucky. This could be a game where Kentucky finds its rhythm offensively. So don't feel great about that, but I got to pick two. So Florida and Vanderbilt, give me the SEC dirty dogs.
Yeah, it's got the makeup of what makes a good dirty dog, right? You got a frisky team, right, as the underdog, and then also a team that can potentially get stagnant offensively, who's significantly more talented, right? But obviously, if they do struggle to move the ball, right, a lot of things can go wrong, especially if Vanderbilt and Tim Beck, right, are humming there offensively. But yeah, I think Kentucky's defense is really good, and I don't know if that'll happen. But yeah, listen, I didn't hate that at all. I really thought about that. However,
No,
give me
you
Oklahoma
didn't.
plus 500. Nah, I didn't think about it. Give me Oklahoma plus 500. Again, this is a dart throw. I think it's going to be a really close game just because of Red River rivalry game. And who knows what can happen, right? If it's a game in the fourth quarter, a lot can go wrong for either team, especially the favorite, right? Oklahoma's going to come out, play super loose. Texas, their eyes just got so big. All of a sudden, I'm pretty sure they finished their game against Mississippi State, and they haven't played a single snap since. And they saw Georgia and Alabama both lose ahead of them, and their eyes just getting super big. It does sound like a super, super trap game. Or not trap, maybe letdown spot. And also, by the way, Texas plays Georgia next week. Not that they're ever going to overlook Oklahoma. Not saying that's going to happen, but I do think, I'm grasping at straws here, right? That's what we're doing this week on
it's a tough
the
week
Dirty
to be
Dogs.
picking dirty dogs. But hey, just when you say that, just when you think that Lou Monroe plus 600 is crazy against James Madison, they strike. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the Dirty Dogs this week. Let's just move straight into the counter. Our best bets for the week. I've got 5. You've got 8. So I'm gonna let you start this train rolling. What do you got for us?
I'll go Missouri in a bounce back spot here. They play 11 a.m. at Massachusetts, by the way, who I'm a huge proponent of Power 4 teams going on the road against G5 schools. Maybe Missouri and UMass, not quite the marquee matchup I want to see, right? In terms of a G5 team holding them back, minus 27.5. I think they bounce back here. We've seen what Mizzou can do against bad football teams, which, yes, UMass is. I think they're running up on them. Yeah. Give me Missouri minus 27.5. Bounce back game for them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I actually didn't consider it. Just I don't know why. I like that play from you. I like that play from you. That could be some value there, right? Because it could have been a matchup thing with Texas A&M, where Missouri just didn't have the bodies in the trenches to deal with what A&M was throwing out there. And now they're playing against a UMass team where they significantly outclassed them in the trenches, and then also happen to have some of the better weapons in the entire country. So, yeah, I like that play a lot. I'm going over to Laramie, Wyoming. Wyoming is catching 2.5. Didn't think that I was going to bet on Wyoming this year because normally my rule is I can't bet on terrible football teams. But the only exception is when I'm betting against terrible football teams when they're going on the road. San Diego State has been awful this year. Okay, defensively, they've actually looked all right at times. But Wyoming, offensively, encouraged me. These last 2 weeks, encouraged me. And we know the home road splits for Wyoming. We know that San Diego State's going to probably try to throw the ball. You know Sean Lewis. You know what he likes to do. In that altitude, I don't think San Diego State gets it done. Give me the freaking Cowboys plus 2.5. Can't believe I did it, but I'm doing it. Save a horse, Ride a cowboy. Let's go.
Wow. I'm not gonna tell you on that one just because of, but it's also like you're betting on Wyoming in Laramie. Never a bad idea.
San Diego
Never a
State,
bad
also
idea.
the second most penalized team in the entire country. Just throwing it out there. Can't be
It's
going
not
into
gonna get
Laramie
easier.
Can't be going into Laramie getting behind the chains. All right.
No, yeah. Listen, I'll stay in G5 here. I'm going over to the MAC. Toledo at Buffalo. I'll go the road favorite here. Toledo minus 9.5. I know you're looking at me like that. Here's the thing. And I say this with hesitancy. I love Pete Lembo. Right? Buffalo has significantly outperformed my expectations of them this year. But I like Tucker Gleason. I like Toledo in this spot. I think Buffalo, they beat NIU and they got a ton of credit for that, which they should, absolutely. But their other wins, UMass, who we talked about earlier, not very good. Same with Lafayette. Yeah, I don't think Buffalo's very good. I think Toledo, Tucker Gleason, Newton, those guys, they go on the road. Campbell just got a big extension. Yeah, give me Toledo minus 9.5. You mean just got to win by 10 points, which they already did against a pretty darn good Miami, Ohio team. Yeah. Toledo's on a mission this year to win the MAC. They're not going to blow it. Not going to spoof it again this year. Give me Toledo.
Yeah, my only concern with that is Toledo's inability to run the football at times. They've had good and bad moments, but some of that's been their schedule, right? I mean, when Tucker Gleason is your leading rusher against Western Kentucky, I am concerned covering big spreads on the road against Buffalo. So that would be my only concern there, right? But hey, I'm not going to stop you from betting against a terrible football team because that's what we do on this show. We bet against terrible football teams. I'm going to head over to the USC Penn State game. I already talked about it earlier a little bit. Give me under 50.5. I know I talked about them playing into each other's weaknesses. I just think they do enough. I think there's a chance that both these teams play fast, and I totally get absolutely kablamoed in the first half, and I realize that I'm an absolute idiot by the end of the first quarter. But I think USC struggled to put the ball in the end zone. I think Penn State, there's a chance that they struggle to put the ball in the end zone. And if they do, they're going to have to do it running the football. I'm on USC Penn State under 50.5. You know, give me 28-21. All right. Feed me that score and I'll be feeding families with these winnings. All right. So USC Penn State under 50.5.
I love that for you. Going to the ACC here, I'm going to rip 2 off right now while I have a chance. Syracuse minus 4.5 at NC State. I do not think NC State's a very good football team. Syracuse, I was very impressed with how they played against UNLV. Yes, they probably could have lost that game for sure, but they went on the road and I think beat a very good G5 football team. I'll give them a ton of credit for that. They got to come back and go on the road again. Hopefully the attrition doesn't get to them, but they did play Friday night, so they did have the extra day to travel, which is really nice for them. And also stay in the ACC, Georgia Tech minus 5.5 over North Carolina. Again, another road favorite. I know. Super scary. I get that. But North Carolina is not a good football team. Georgia Tech is kind of question mark. I think they're frisky. I think they get this game. They're staring down a bowl game right now. If they can beat the 2 North Carolina schools, or I guess they've already beaten 2 of them. But yeah, I'll go Georgia Tech minus 5.5 at UNC.
Yeah, I feel better about the Georgia Tech one. I actually like that one a lot. I thought about taking it. I really did. But then I thought about Mac Brown and how he just loves to screw me over. So I don't know. I guess that wasn't the only reason. I worry about turnovers with Haynes King. It's always hard to take Georgia Tech as a favorite for me.
Yeah.
Syracuse, they finally ran the ball well with LaQuinn Allen, and I think that if they continue to do that, I think that's a really good play for you. Okay, because I think you might be getting that before that market kind of catches up on Syracuse's offense. Because we know that Cal McCoy's been slinging the pill. We haven't seen LaQuinn Allen run the ball all that effective. He looked really good against UNLV when he touched the ball in the passing game and in the run game. So I would anticipate them running the ball against the NC State defense, which is susceptible to, I don't know, everything. So, yeah, I like that for you. Let me go over to the Big 12. BYU is laying 4.5 at home in Provo against Arizona. a team like Arizona that relies on, I don't know, slinging the pill a little bit to some guys. BYU has played some exceptional defense, and at altitude, I don't know. Arizona might struggle a little bit. I was not impressed with Noah Fafita last week. I know he ended up with like okay stats. Haven't been impressed with Fafita a ton this year. I think this is a spot where BYU, and I don't know if I'm just buying BYU at the top of the roller coaster and it's all downhill from here, but I like them at home. If they're on the road, I would not be taking this at all. Give me BYU -4.5 at home.
Yeah, listen, I wanted that bad too, but I again kind of like how you are with Iowa State. I am a little bit cautious. I'd rather be late to the party on BYU than kind of jump in while it's crashing down. Yeah, that is what it is. That's a big game in the Big 12 there for sure. I'll go to the back to the MAC, and I'm gonna go Miami, Ohio -2.5. I already bet on them against them this year as Cincinnati, but they have played a brutal schedule so far. Right? Not only did they have Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame in their out of conference, but they also had to open up conference play against Toledo. Yes, Eastern Michigan is 4-1, right? Yes, their only loss is to Washington, but have they really been super, super impressive? Right? We saw Kent State, kind of hang in there for a while with them, and Kent State's not a very good football team, and they might struggle to win a game all year, right? Holy cow! And listen, I'm ready to ride Miami, Ohio now in the MAC here. I think a lot of teams have a chance to win that league, right? And I think they understand they lost to Toledo, sure, but they can still accomplish all of their goals. And this is a big one here. Eastern Michigan on the road, 1 p.m. start Central Time. Yeah, under a field goal, I'll go Miami, Ohio.
All right, I'll let you take another one because I've only got two more after this one, and you've got four?
Yeah. I'll stick in the G5 here. I got two here. Memphis -7 at South Florida. Again, another road favorite. I am terrified for that. South Florida, I do not think is very good. Memphis, I think, gets right here. I think, yes, we saw them kind of get embarrassed by Navy, but that was coming off, a big win against Florida State, right? We saw them a couple weeks ago kind of get back against Mid Tennessee, sure, whatever, but they went on by. They regroup. They can get after South Florida here. And what is not that this has influenced me in any way. I will say while we're talking about South Florida, I hope everyone around Tampa is okay. Obviously, very scared weather situation going on there. I'm not picking against them because of the weather. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm not rooting against them. To be honest, I'd love to see South Florida get a win there. I've been rooting for that program for a while now. And obviously, I hope the state of Florida is doing okay. Yes, with that being said, moving on, I'll go Southern Miss at Louisiana Monroe. Damn it. Give me the Warhawks, right? UL Monroe -6.5. I'll take a home favorite now. I'll take a home favorite. Feel good about that. Southern Miss is terrible. UL Monroe convinced me. Right, finally convinced me. Let's ride them. Let's ride that wave. They're continuing to play well. I love it. Scares me. Letdown spot. I love it.
Yeah, 6.5 is just it's too many points for me. I don't know. If you got that one down to 4, 3.5, could be convinced. I just don't think ULM's not. It's not a big spread. ULM's not covering a big spread against anyone.
Here's the thing. I think if they score 20 points, 17 points, I think they win this football game.
And cover.
Yeah, excuse me. That means they cover. Yes.
Win and cover. Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate that. A lot of. I mean that's your safe one though. They're at home, right? Yeah. So hopefully ULM can take you home if some of these road favorites don't. I got two totals left for you. I got North Texas FEU over 59.5. If you follow American Athletic Conference football, I shouldn't really have to explain this one to you. North Texas plays at a really nice pace, and they just put up an insane amount of points. They're a top 15 offense in the country. They're also a bottom 20 defense in the country. FAU, on the other hand, uh, maybe isn't the best team either. Maybe Tom Herman. Tom Herman's struggling out there. All right. Offensively, they haven't looked great. Okay, but they can run the ball effectively. I'm hoping that they can catch some success in the air where North Texas has been most susceptible this year. The thing about FAU's defense is that their secondary is pretty good. But North Texas is not limited to just throwing the ball, right? Chandler Morris has looked really nice this year, throwing for like almost 350 yards a game. But North Texas can also run the ball really well, and Florida Atlantic's giving up 5.3 yards per carry, 222 yards on the ground. I think together these teams can get to 60. I'm looking at this game. It's 6.5-point spread, I believe. Instead of taking the spread, I took the over. I think this could be a 35-28 game, and that'll send us way over. So, or what, 31-28? Does that send us over? No. It's 31-30, I guess, would send us over. But I think this game goes over. So I'm riding with that one. I don't have as many bets this week. Lines are getting sharp, dude. So I'm I usually can find 5. Sometimes I find more, but this week that's one I'm playing. So give me the total. I got 3 totals this week. So
listen, I like that one actually. And Cam Fencer, his problem this year has been turnovers, right? 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And by the way,
that can
not
help.
great for FAU, but good for totals, man. If you are throwing interceptions,
It's red zone interceptions. Red zone interceptions.
Yes,
can't happen.
Depends on where for sure. But sometimes that can be a big thing there with turnovers and running that score up. I don't hate that. At all. I'll give you my one. I got 2 more. So second to last one here. You're on Vandy and our Dirty Dogs. I'm on Kentucky on the counter, minus 13.5. I think their defense is good enough to shut down Vanderbilt. I think they run the ball. I think they're continuing to play better and better and better and better. And I think they were off last week, right? And after the big win against Ole Miss, you can kind of regroup, settle in, get after it, right? Continue to play, right? Just better and better football offensively. And if you can score enough points in this game, maybe, yeah, what's the total? What's the total in this game? 46.5, 13-point favorites. At 24, no, 30, 28-14, basically, 31-17, something like that. So if you're playing around there, you get the 30 points here. I feel good about you covering.
I am going over to UTSA Rice. Let's stay in Texas. Rice, their pass defense has been pretty effective. I think their defense overall has been really nice. Their run game has been really nice this year. Okay? UTSA's run defense has been really nice this year. See where I'm going with this? UTSA's passing offense has been really good. Rice's pass defense has been really good. I think that these are 2 teams that are going to struggle to score points. I think they both have severe issues at the quarterback position in general. Also, I think if Rice is going to win this game, they're going to try to run the football at least. Whether or not they can do it has yet to be determined. Rice is also the third worst red zone offense in the entire country. UTSA is the 99th red zone offense in the entire country. We're talking about scraping by for points. And these are also 2 top 35 teams in red zone defenses. Scoring points and allowing points in the red zone are both these teams' tendencies here. So I'm inclined to believe that this game is going to soar under 50.5.
Yeah, don't hate that at all. Do not hate that at all. My last one here before we get out of here. Ohio State at Oregon. Give me -3. At 3, I love. 3.5, I don't. I just think Ohio State's really good. I think they'll go in there. They'll take care of business. I think the chance for a blowout is there. I don't think it's going to happen, but more times than not, I think Ohio State covers -3. Feel pretty good about the number. I'll take it.
Alrighty. That's it for us. Week 7 previews. Thank you for tuning in. If you like the content, like the video, maybe stick around. Consider subscribing. Be one of our 500 plus subscribers on this channel. Thank you all who have recently subscribed and have just joined us. Look, it's never too late. All right, it's never too late to join the Redshirt Sophomore. We love having you guys here. We love talking college football. If we didn't get to talk about your team today, I'm sorry. If we talked mess about your team today, I'm not going to apologize for that because there's a chance that your team might stink. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for all of that stuff. We'll be back here on Monday, hopefully, Tuesday, depending on when we get those videos edited, on the recap of this week 7, which I hope to be a crazy one. And every week we're putting out recaps and we're putting out previews. Occasionally, some emergency episodes. Maybe some coaches get fired. We'll have to do a conference realignment one at some point this season. I don't know when we want to do that. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, kind of focused on the here and now. Right? There's a lot going on. You got a 12-team playoff. You got conference races. Literally going bananas right now. Going actually bananas. Feels like there's a lot of parity in college football, which you haven't always been able to say. So, CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, love doing this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate you guys sticking around as always. And yeah, cannot wait for this weekend.
We'll see y'all in the next one.